Disney Lorcana's Set 5 Shimmering Skies is only a few weeks away, and in light of that, today I'll be sharing with you all the cards I am most excited for coming into the new set. Plus, Ravensburger has been kind enough to give us our first ever exclusive card reveal, so we'll be looking at that in just a second. Alright guys, so this is our exclusive card reveal. Gonna get it out of the way just so you don't have to click through the video. We have Simba the Lost Prince, a free cost inkable 2/4. During your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, you may draw a card. Now, for those of you who are pretty aware of most cards in the game, as I like to be, this is very similar to Jafar Dreadnought, which is a free 4 with the same effect text. So in this case, we are losing one cost for the benefit of being a 2/4, and it's no longer a Floodborn, but with Bucky being nerfed, that shouldn't matter too much anyway. So something to keep in mind with Simba is that there are no potential shifts yet, so this is the card as you have it, but it does carry the Prince tagline, which should give some amazing synergy with Pride lands in order to get some discounted character cards and make the card more survivable with more durability. With more willpower, I think the stat is called in Lorcana, and with Grand Duke, thanks for Prince Energy, you can even get +1 attack. This will hopefully enable the Simba to be able to banish more characters on challenge to trigger that draw card effect. And also with the Heroes tag, we have synergy with Philotetes, which means when it is played, you can gain 1 lore from the Philotetes, but also Philotetes gives +1 challenger for all heroes, which again should help enable the draw card effect. Another card to compare it to is Maleficent in Amethyst, which is a 2/2 for free cost inkable, which gets the draw on the play but puts less pressure on the board. So this card I think works well in a mid-range deck where you're trying to control your opponent's characters and establish some board presence dominance. You know, it comes with the marked downside of if you have no characters to challenge, you're never going to get that draw card effect. This is also interesting that it's in Steel, because most control decks in Steel are running a whole new world, so they don't necessarily need this conditional card draw, but if you're playing a mid-range or aggro deck, I think the Simba could be quite beneficial in those lists. Plus, if we just have a look at the card art from Alexandria Neonakis, I hope I got that name right, it is, oh, beautiful. I mean, just look at the twilight lighting as we've gone into, I think it's the Hyena Den. But yeah, no, I'm a big fan of the Lion King movie. Simba's a great character. We've got tons of Simba cards already, but I think this one actually has a good chance of seeing some consistent play because of how little card draw Steel has outside of the whole new world card. So this should work really well in mid-range packages especially. Now, onto our new card reveals. I did say Set 5 Shimmering Skies. This one is actually coming into Set 6, so it's a very early reveal. This was revealed as part of the new D23 collection, coming, I believe, August 9th at various Disney stores around the world. Make sure to go check those out if you're interested in purchasing the product. So this card is Oswald, a fan favorite character. I know my friend's a big fan of Oswald, so they'll be happy to hear about this. But honestly, if we just have a look at the card here, this gets me super excited about Set 6. Because other than the beautiful art, it carries a beautiful effect of during your turn, whenever a card is put into your inkwell, you may reveal the top card of your deck. If it's an item card, you may play that item for free and they enter play exerted. Otherwise, put it on the bottom of your deck. Now, I mean, what an insane card. So it's a 2-cost uninkable, 2/1. It doesn't have ward and it quests for 2, but you don't actually need to quest with this card. Like a Bucky, you can just leave it on the board and hopefully continue gaining benefit from Oswald's effect, forcing your opponent to use some kind of removal card on it. Because I mean, imagine if you got a lucky dime off of this on turn 3, right? You play it for 2 cost, then you ink a card, and maybe you get a lucky dime, right? That would be insane. The marked downside, though, of a strategy like this centered around items is that we become much more susceptible to AoE item removal like we see in the most recent Our Find 'em, Our Flatten 'em card. I believe it's a 4-cost singable, banish all items on the field. Actually, it might even be just opponent's items. No, it's banish all items on the field. Didn't need to search that up. But yeah, so if we look at other cards that synergize with this sort of effect, if you're running the Grandma Tala, you get double payoff for ramping. So if you're able to ink twice a turn, you could gain plus lore from the Grandma Talas and then search for item cards from the Oswald. And because it's putting it on the bottom of your deck, if the top card is not an item card, then you can actually dig through the top card of your deck multiple times. Also, if you're playing Amethyst, you could use scry cards like bosses on a roll to manipulate the top of your deck in order to trigger it multiple times. In Sapphire, we're looking at inking twice a turn if we need to, so you could use bosses on a roll in Blurple to put 2 item cards to the top of your deck and then ink twice to guarantee that you get to play them. If this is the sort of design space we're going for in set 6, I'm very, very excited to see what all those cards look like, and we haven't even seen all the set 5 cards yet. This is Vanellope von Schweetz, another card reveal from the D23 product. Again, the Enchanteds look insane in D23 and in set 5 in general. I love how they're formatting it now, giving more space for the art by moving down all the UI elements, making it, more of a full art card than it was before. In this case, Vanellope is a 4-cost inkable 2/4 that quests for 2 and carries the synergy effect of whenever you play another princess character, all opposing characters get -1 attack until the start of your next turn. This could combo incredibly with the existing Lemon Lime Kida Under the Sea decks, where along with Kida, you now have 2 shift cards that are minusing the attack of your opponents, and then can hopefully immediately sing Under the Sea for an asymmetric board wipe combo. Other than that, it shifts for 2, which is a lot cheaper than the Kida, but it's only doing -1 attack, and it has to be with after you play another princess character, which makes it a bit clunkier than Kida. And we see the new Racer tag. It will be interesting to see where the synergy. It'll be interesting to see where the Racer synergy has taken the set, as we're starting to see a lot of push for these tribal tag synergies in Lorcana design space ever since the last set or so. Daisy Duck Donald's Day is an amber, uninkable 1-cost quest for 2 like Maleficent and Lilo, but instead has an insanely survivable 1/4 stat line. So, what's the catch? Well, every time Daisy quests, your opponent gets to check the top card of their deck. If it's a character, they draw it, and if not, it gets sent to the bottom of their deck. With the high amount of action cards that control decks tend to run, this card should be very effective at punishing greedier strategies, and honestly, you can even combo it with discard to mitigate the downside of giving your opponents cards. Especially in the early games, your opponent might not benefit from draw as they don't have the ink to do so yet. I think this Daisy is going to be a staple in aggro decks going forward. Because if you really think about it, there aren't many decks that can punish a 1/4 early in the game, especially if you're a control deck. Usually removal damage is at like 2 damage with Fire the Cannons or Baboom, and then with characters on board, everything tends to max out at 3 attack. The only 2-cost character we see going to 4 attack is, I believe, Argus, the 4/1, and Gaston, the Reckless 4/2. So if this card becomes relevant in the meta, control decks might be forced to run that in the 2-drop slots just to have an answer to an insane amount of lore early on, as this card's looking at questing 3 times before it's getting removed. And even if it soaks up a bunch of removal and attention, that gives the aggro deck time to play other 1-cost high threat cards like Merfolk, like Maleficent, and like Daisy Duck. Next up is Kristoff Reindeer Keeper. Honestly, Kristoff is so close to being nuts. He's basically a Chernobog with Bodyguard, but for song decks. This is because he gets discounted by 1 ink for each song in your discard, which inherently synergizes very well with Steal Songs, Dump Songs, and Spin a Whole New World strategy. Unfortunately, with a 3/7 stat line, this does give him the classic critique of Dies to Medusa, and being uninkable makes it very unlikely that he'll see play despite being a very strong card that quests for free and a respectable stat line, because Ruby has always held a significant chunk of the meta. You just gotta respect that Dies to Medusa critique when it comes to many cards in this game. Amethyst Chromicon. This is a 2-cost inkable item, tap, and both players may draw a card. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think this card is nuts, I just think it has some very interesting niche applications. In Mill, you're going to be able to safely take advantage of the draw due to your larger deck size, and along with Second Star to the right and a Whole New World, you'd have a lot of consistent ways to force your opponent to draw cards. And in Jafar, you'd be able to gain lore from every card drawn, find combo pieces you need, and then a Whole New World away any card advantage your opponent may have gained from the card. Though this is a very glass cannon strategy, as you're giving your opponent answers too, it's just a pretty interesting card to think about because there are ways to benefit asymmetrically off of symmetrical card effects, in this case both players drawing a card. And the fact that you draw the card on your turn and not your opponent's does mean the draw value isn't 100% equal either, much like Donald Duck and Emerald, as we're going to get to play with the card we see drawn first. But in all likelihood, This card's just a bit too slow, and there are much better draw effects, like we see with the Merlin Rabbit package and Friends on the Other Side. However, I think in niche strategies like Jafar, like Mill, we might see Amethyst Chromicon see some extra usage because you can benefit more from that draw than your opponent can. Bruni Fire Salamander, a 4-cost inkable 2/2 with evasive that quests for 2 is already a decent stat line. But with the bonus effect of drawing a card on Banish, this makes it a slower Kuzco that's harder to clear and quests for 2. I honestly think this card could be pretty insane in more aggressive lower curve decks, as even if your opponent has a clear answer like Storm or Grab Your Sword, the card still replaces itself on death. The only thing holding it back is that number 1, it's a bit slower than Kuzco, and number 2, being 4 cost, the slot is heavily contested in Amethyst, competing with cards like Merlin Rabbit and Merlin Goat. It may be hard to justify the deck space when such consistent options already exist. But I think maybe in a pure turn sideways quest aggressive deck, Bruni is a very, very strong contender. Prince Philip, Kingdom Swordsman. I'm going to preface this by saying I don't think this card's going to be meta. But it is an interesting card design, and probably a good one to keep an eye on, as a body with an on-banish effect that specifically targets dragons means this card could be good as a niche tech card. As the game gets faster and faster, it's becoming more important for every card to do something on play, or at least present a large enough threat that it needs to be removed before the next turn. And a lot of the new green cards all seem to be moving in this direction of interacting with damaged cards, and this card is no exception. When this character challenges a damaged character, you can ready him at the end of the challenge. This is kind of like Scar without the rush and a lower attack, so you're definitely not going to get this effect off as consistently. And being a free 9, again, it still dies to Medusa. As more and more of these cards come equipped with these on-play effects that have some sort of impact on the board or high value attached to them, it's really showing where the game is going because of how much interactability there is now in removing your opponent's board, that every card needs to do something, at least one thing, before it gets banished. Iago Fake Flamingo is another funny card, but I don't think will be good, but has a very interesting design. It is a 4-cost inkable 2/4 with evasive at quest for 1, and has the effect of when it quests, you get a 2 ink discount of the next action you play this turn. Due to the evasive tag, you could expect this character to survive while questing multiple turns, especially with the 2/4 stat line. And I think paired with an ink like Steel, discounting action cards could be incredibly relevant. We're talking about 0-cost Babooms, 2-cost Zeus, and 3-cost Grab Your Sword. In a tempo-oriented list, this lets us control the board while using the rest of our ink to play more characters to apply further pressure. My only concern is that this card comes in too late at 4 ink to really have an impact, as by turn 3, 4, 5, Steel decks usually have set up Singers for their control cards anyway using the shift mechanic, or Singer cards like Ariel. So a 2-cost discount may not even be that relevant, as it doesn't let us cheat out anything early. Robin Hood has 3 cards revealed so far in set 5, and it gives us a really good look as to where Emerald Steel might be heading design-wise since the nerf of Bucky. Firstly, we have the 2-cost Robin Hood, which carries the incredible effect of when you play this character, if an opponent has a damaged character in play, you gain 1 lore. Now, normally, I would say this effect is quite inconsistent, but considering how many effects we have like this now, you can reasonably start to build a deck around this prerequisite. The only issue is cards like Cogsworth with Resist nullify this deck's identity entirely. However, if we are able to get this deck's main identity off, being able to get an uninteractable +1 lore with the small Robin Hood, and then with the big Robin Hood, or bigger Robin Hood of 5-cost inkable, shift into it for free with the effect of this character gets +1 lore for each opposing damaged character in play, then with the board we've already set up, assuming no Cogsworth, or of our opponent having multiple damaged characters in play, and we should be able to instantly shift and quest for multiple lore in one go. And then with the even bigger Robin Hood, Timely Contestant, using the board of damaged characters we've already set up, we can hopefully heavily discount a 6/6 with Ward that quests for 4. And as we've seen with the new Ariel in set 4, this kind of character is usually only getting removed by a Be Prepared before it's able to quest, since we can play around Be King Undisputed and Tremaine with smaller characters, which makes it a very good boss card to slam down late into the game. Wreck-It Ralph Demolition Dude is a 3-cost inkable 1/4 that quests for 1, and let's be honest, that stat line sucks. but it does have the interesting effect text of whenever you ready him, gain 1 lore for each damage on him. I don't think this will be viable, but I'm sure someone's going to try some fun interactions with cards like Fan the Flames and LeFou to gain instant lore after challenging him into another character, maybe with a card like Vitalosphere. But, like with any clunky combo, if I need to think of at least 2 other cards to make it work, it likely won't be competitively viable. Do note though that if he readies at the start of your turn after being damaged, it still should gain the lore, which means your opponent's going to have to remove it before the turn ticks over. I think it's always interesting to look at cards like this in reveal season that probably won't be meta, but add some interesting design options for a clunky combo deck later down the line, or just some for fun deck building you can play against your friends. Tefita Mud and Fudge. We have another interesting shift line here, 2 cards. This time, Tefita Mud and Fudge, where in red we're beginning to see location synergies explored even further. Firstly is the base card, a 1-cost inkable 1/2 that quests for 1. And with the effect of when you play this character, if you have a location in play, each opponent loses 1 lore. All the way back in set 1, we saw Aladdin see play because of what it could shift to with this effect. Unfortunately, because you require a location already in play, it's not a good 1-drop on curve, and thus likely will not see any play. However, the shift version, Sour Speedster, actually has some very cool usage. As a 4-cost inkable that shifts for 2, and once per turn when this character moves to a location, gain 2 lore. Paired with locations like RLS Legacy so that the character has evasive, making it harder to be removed, or with cards like Tuk Tuk, which can move a character for free to trigger this effect, we might see some interesting, at minimum, rogue decks that take full advantage of the location tribal synergy strategy, like the Ruby Amber one from fellow content creator Towman Purple that's been floating around, and honestly has some pretty good matchups. As a blue-steel, red-blue player, it's very, very hard to interact with just a high amount of locations because you're not putting enough stats on the board to easily remove them before they can gain a bunch of lore. Steel Chromicon. I don't know how to feel about this item. It's a 6-cost uninkable, which is a big downside, but with the pretty amazing effect of once per turn tapping to deal 1 damage. This is the kind of card that would fit really well into Emerald Steel with the damage character synergies. The only issue is, if you can't cheat this item out, where are you finding the breathing room to justify a 6-cost uninkable that doesn't immediately impact the board? Especially as if you are running Emerald Steel without running a card like Hidden Ink Caster, it's just going to sit in your hand the entire time. And you Ruby Amethyst players will know how tough it can be to have 1 or 2 Be Prepared sitting in your hand and then just get wheeled away anyway. One thing to note though is that with the Oswald reveal we saw for set 6, we may start to see items more easily able be cheated out and ignore those high costs. So if we could get a Steel Chromicon or a Lucky Dime out for free, we're going to be pretty happy. Kronk Head of Security is another big uninkable card that probably won't see play as it's too slow, but if I were to fit it in any deck, it would definitely be Sapphire Steel, which can afford to play lots of expensive characters, and would also benefit most from the payoff of On Challenge and Banish playing a 5-cost for free. I mean, just imagine playing this Kronk, and then playing down another Cogsworth for free to protect it. That'd be pretty nuts, right? It is very survivable as a 6/6, but it only quests for 1, and so far we haven't seen any cheap Kronks revealed. So the only realistic shift target is Morph, and with a shift cost of 5, it is an absolute pipe dream to make this card work in the current context. Unfortunately, I think for this card to be viable, you would need a small Kronk shift target, or else this card just gets removed before it can even impact the board. And we run lots of incredible high-cost cards in Sapphire Steel already, such as Tamatoa, Hades, and Simba, which have immediate impact on the board. Mufasa, Ruler of Pride Rock, is definitely the coolest card design I have seen in Lorcana so far. Lorcana revealed it on their channel. They said it wouldn't be competitive, and honestly, I hope we can prove them wrong in Sapphire Steel. The main barrier to this card is that it is an 8-cost uninkable. However, this time at 4/9, it doesn't die to Medusa, so the main threats are Maleficent Dragon and Be Prepared. The first upside, however, is that it is a 4/9, it quests for 4, and whenever you play this card, you exert all ink in your inkwell, then return 2 cards at random from your inkwell to your hand. Hopefully a card you were forced to ink early and that you needed to get back later, such as a Lucky Dime. But the really big payoff is that if it does live a turn whenever Mufasa quests, you ready all cards in your inkwell, essentially letting you play 2 turns for the price of 1. Combine this with a card like A Whole New World in Sapphire Steel, then you have the extra ink to dump 2 entire hands worth of value onto the board in 1 turn. This payoff is so insane that people like me will definitely try and make this card work. But as the dust settles on the set 5 meta, I think we are likely to see this card shelved back into binders. As much as I don't want it to be true, I think the meta is just going to be too easily able to adapt around a card that needs a turn before the big payoff. As always, I hope you enjoyed the video. Good luck to everyone competing in the Fort Worth Challenge this weekend. And if you're looking for some competitive Lorcana coaching, make sure to head over to my Discord where you can get more info. See ya.